How's it going, y'all? Welcome back to the pregame show. I'm your host, Owen Manning. Today we're going to recap last night's college basketball, but we'll look into tonight and throughout the rest of the week. So last night, Duke traveled down to number 19 ranked Miami, where Miami absolutely throttled Duke. 18-59. Duke didn't even put up much of a fight. It was a balanced scoring effort from Miami, and good game for Miami. They beat Duke. Also last night, number 5 Texas traveled up to number 9 Kansas. Kansas did win that ball game, 88-80. Kansas won despite 29 points from a Texas guard, Marcus Carr. It was a good game overall. Kansas they started out pretty good. They played a good game. In Texas, they made a few runs to try to put themselves back on top, but they just couldn't ever keep a run going long enough to put themselves on top of the Jayhawks. So the Jayhawks came out victorious in that one. Now that we're done talking about last night, we're going to talk about tonight's basketball action. Number 10, the Marquette Golden Eagles go to number 21, University of Connecticut Huskies. That game is at 6:30 on Fox Sports 1 tonight. UConn is favored by 4.5 points by the folks down in Vegas. That is played at the XL Center, which holds 15,564 fans in Hartford, Connecticut. Starting with the away team, Marquette, they are 19-5 on the season, 11-2 in conference, which puts them first in the Big East. They're coached by Coach Shaka Smart. So the leading scorers for Marquette are guard Cam Jones, who averages 15.7 points per game, as well as forward Oliver Maxine Prosper, averaging 13.5 points per game. UConn is 18-6 on the season, 7-6 in the conference, so they were undefeated in their non-conference schedule, which slots them in at 6th in the Big East. They're coached by Dan Hurley. The leading scorers for UConn, forward Adama Sanago, averaging 17.2 points per game, as well as 7.2 rebounds per game. Also, guard Jordan Hawkins is averaging 16.3 points per game. I do like Marquette to cover that 4.5, as well as their money line is also in play. I think Marquette's a good ball team, but UConn's also ranked, so they're good as well. But I think Marquette is just a really well-rounded ball team, and I think they might be able to cover that 4.5 points. Next up, we have number 24, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, at number 18, the Indiana Hoosiers. This game is at 6:30 tonight on the Big Ten Network. Indiana is favored by 4.5 points. The game is at Assembly Hall, which holds 17,222 fans in Bloomington, Indiana. Rutgers is 16-7, 8-4 in the conference, which puts them at 2nd in the Big Ten. They're coached by Steve Piquel. The leading scorers for Rutgers, center Clifford Omarui, averaging 13.4 points per game, as well as 10 rebounds per game. Guard Cam Spencer is averaging 12.8 points per game. Indiana, they are 16-7 on the season, 7-5 in the conference, which puts them 3rd in the Big Ten. They're coached by Mike Woodson. Their leading scorer is forward Trace Jackson Davis, averaging 19.8 points per game, as well as 11 rebounds per game. Also, guard Jalen Hood-Schifino is averaging 12.5 points per game, and also 4 rebounds per game for him. I do like Indiana to cover the 4.5 in that one as well. Next up in the ACC, we have number 22 NC State Wolfpack at number 8 Virginia Cavaliers. This game is at 9 o'clock on the ACC network, and the folks down in Vegas at Virginia favored by 7 points. This game will be played at John Paul Jones Arena, which holds 14,623 people in Charlottesville, Virginia. NC State, they are 19-5 on the season, 9-4 in the ACC, which slots them in at 5th place in the ACC. They're coached by Coach Kevin Keats. Guard Terquavion Smith is their leading scorer, averaging 18.5 points per game. And then another guard, Jarkel Joyner, is averaging 16.2 points per game. Virginia, they are 7-4 on the season, 9-3 in the ACC, puts them at 2nd in the ACC as well. Coached by Tony Bennett. They're led in scoring by guard Armand Franklin, who's averaging 12.7 points per game, And another guard, Kihei Clark, is averaging 11.6 points per game. I like NC State to cover that 7 points. Virginia, they like to play slow on occasion, and I think that's going to let NC State keep that game within 7, even if they do still lose it. The next game we have is number 17 TCU Horned Frogs at number 12 Kansas State Wildcats. This game is at 9 o'clock on ESPNU tonight. Kansas State is favored by the bookies down there by 5 points. The game will be played at Bramlage Coliseum, which holds 12,528 people in Manhattan, Kansas. TCU is 17-6 on the season, 6-4 in the Big 12, which puts them at 4th place in their conference. They're coached by Jamie Dixon and led in scoring by guard Mike Miles Jr., who's averaging 18.1 points per game, as well as forward Emmanuel Miller, who is averaging 13.2 points per game and 6.4 rebounds per game. Kansas State is 18-5 on the season, 6-4 in the conference, for good enough for 4th in the Big 12. Led in scoring by forward Keontae Johnson, who's averaging 18.1 points per game and 7.7 rebounds per game, as well as guard Marquise Noel, averaging 16.8 points per game, and they are coached by Jerome Tang. I think TCU, they can cover the 5 points that Vegas has given to them. TCU is a solid ball team. I've watched them on several occasions this year. Kansas State, I haven't really watched them, to be honest, but I think TCU is really good, and I think they can cover that and even possibly win. Some other notable games tonight and throughout the week. Starting out tonight, UNC at Wake Forest at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Auburn at Texas A&M at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Maryland at Michigan State, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. Nevada at New Mexico, 10:30 on Fox Sports 1. Now on Wednesday night, the number 23 Creighton Blue Jays are playing at Seton Hall at 6:30 on Fox Sports 1. Number 11 Iowa State is at West Virginia at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. I think that'll be a tough game for the Iowa State Cyclones. They're coming off the victory against Kansas, and I think that's a tough environment down there in West Virginia. I think it could give Iowa State some trouble, but who knows. The next game is Florida at number 3 ranked Alabama at 9 o'clock on ESPN2 tomorrow night. Oklahoma Sooners at the 12th ranked Baylor Bears at 9 o'clock on ESPNU. Then 25 San Diego State at Utah State at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports. Thursday night, there's just a couple games I'd like to make note of. Iowa Hawkeyes at the number 1 Purdue Boilermakers at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Then the 4th ranked Arizona Wildcats at the California Golden Bears at 11 o'clock on the Pac-12 network. Now it's time for our Big Blue segment of the day. Arkansas is coming to Kentucky tonight. Game's at 9 o'clock on ESPN, which, I'll tell you, that 9 o'clock tip, man, going to the game and then walking back to campus, sometimes it'll make for a late night, but oh well, what can you do about it? Not much, let me tell you. UK is favored by 5.5 points. Game is obviously going to be played at Rupp Arena, which seats 20,500 people here in Lexington. Arkansas is 16-7, 5-5 in the conference, puts them at 7th in the SEC, coached by Eric Musselman. They're led in scoring by guard Ricky Council IV, averaging 17 points per game, and their second leading scorer, Nick Smith Jr., who is averaging 12.8 points per game, has been out since December and is not expected to play for the rest of the season. So their second leading scorer who is active tonight is guard Anthony Black, averaging 12.5 points per game. Now for your Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky is 16-7 on the season, 7-3 in the SEC, which is good enough for 4th place. They're coached by Coach John Calipari. Led in scoring by center Oscar Tshiebwe, averaging 15.9 points per game, as well as 13.6 rebounds per game. Second leading scorer is guard Antonio Reeves, averaging 13 points per game, and surprisingly enough, he does come off the bench for the Cats. Forward Jacob Toppin is third in scoring, averaging 11.7 points per game, as well as 6.5 rebounds per game. And then rounding out the double-digit scoring figures for the Cats is Cason Wallace, averaging 11.7 points per game. UK does have 6 straight SEC wins. I'd like to make note of that because we seem to be kind of on a roll here. getting into the heart of the schedule, coming up on some games that we really need to win. That's going to affect our seeding, so we really need to get wins. So we're 6 straight in the SEC. Some keys that I've got here for us for tonight. Number 1, offense needs to learn to be more efficient when Oscar is being locked up a little bit. Last game against Florida, Oscar, he was being well defended in there by Colin Castleton. We still tried to force it in there, and we were taking bad shots, and he was taking really super contested shots. And I don't know, I just don't think it's the most efficient strategy. We were making turnovers, trying to force the entry pass and stuff like that. We can't really have that happen against better teams because one of these times it'll come to bite us. Second key I have for us, Casey Wallace needs to keep his scoring aggression from the last game. He had 20-some points, I believe, and I think if he does that night in and night out, we'll have a good chance to win every ball game, and we'll be in the ball game at the end of the game. Number 3, we need to be physical on the defense. I think being physical prevents us from being exploited on the pick and roll. Because you see, whenever the screen comes in and you're getting screened, if the guard is either real physical fighting over top or even underneath that screen, it jams up the roller and the guard at the same time, so they're not as able to run the action the most effective they can, which helps your defense out. As well as if you say you do switch, if the person switching onto the ball goes real aggressive, it's harder to make the pass over top and hit the roller if your defender coming off the switch is aggressive, because they're going to be all up in you and it's going to be tougher to make that pass. And then the fourth key I have for us is to not get beat because of helping on the isolation. Arkansas, they've got a good backcourt. So if, say, they're guards and they ISO all night, we need to not get beat on the backdoor lob because we're having to help over. We've got to do something to prevent that. We just can't have that happen all night. And the fifth key I have for us is we need to not get complacent with our shots. We'll have like an open jumper, which it's a great shot. Most of the time, we pass up open threes for contested floaters, and obviously you'd rather have the open three most of the time, but we just can't get complacent sometimes. Also, what I'd like to see tonight, I'd like to see some more minutes out of Damian Collins off the bench. It seems like whenever he gets in the ball game, the fans are real invested into it, and it is a great story from what he's been through. And he seems like a great spark plug off the bench. Last game, did y'all see him try to jump over that guy and dunk on him? He was going to end that other guy's career if he landed that poster on him. But anyway, he got fouled and he went to the line, which is, that's good. It's a big momentum shift to watch a big, huge acrobatic dunk attempt like that. I think it's just great energy off of the bench. My pick for tonight's game, I do like UK minus 5.5 points. I think we will be able to cover that. Arkansas, they've struggled in true road games this year. I believe they might only have one true road game win the entire season. So anyway, in other sporting news tonight, LeBron does need 36 points to eclipse Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time leading scoring record in the NBA. The Lakers play tonight at 10 o'clock versus the Bucks on TNT. So after you're done watching the UK game, you can just flip right over to TNT and you can watch some of that action and see if he goes at it tonight. And if he don't go at it tonight, I'm sure he'll probably get it whenever they play next. Well, that's all I got for y'all this time. I'll see y'all next time. Catch you later.